Rohan, you mentioned the second must sign was DJ Jones. So DJ Jones, I think PFF just put out something where he was like number one in run stopper at the at that defensive line, interior defensive line position. He's somebody who I think is going to be interesting because this is one of those players that might be pretty. I guess a lot of teams might be looking at him to come in because defensive line is such an important position. So this is something where I think the 49ers will have to make a decision because he is probably going to need a good contract to be brought back. So why do you think it's so important for DJ Jones to be brought back, especially since that defensive line depth has been one of the strengths of the 49ers?
Yeah, I personally am a huge fan of DJ Jones. I thought he had a phenomenal season this year, just disrupting the run. And him and Arik Armstead were the reasons why. Like when Arik Armstead got moved to the interior defensive line in the middle of the season, I believe during week 8, the 49ers run defense just absolutely turned it around. They didn't allow a 100-yard rusher for a majority of the season, apart from that week 13 Seattle game where they allowed 73 yards on a fake punt, which technically wasn't on the defense. But looking at it, like DJ Jones, like you said, he was the number one interior defensive lineman in ESPN's run stop win rate. Arik Armstead was also top 5. So you have 2 top 5 run defenders, and you're like, okay, you have a commodity. Do you need 2 commodities? And my response to that is, you said it yourself. The 49ers are built on defensive line depth. So there definitely is room for a guy like Javon Kinlaw, who the 49ers drafted 2 years ago, to grow. But when you have someone who's elite at their position and elite at what they do, like DJ Jones is in the run game, especially with that just the physical frame that he has to go with how big he is, I think that you really can't pass up talent and try and get talent elsewhere, especially for a team that's trying to win a championship now. There isn't a reason for you to, unless obviously you get outbid. But if DJ Jones wants to resign like he said he has, there really isn't a reason for you to pass on a greater talent for a younger, inexperienced, and unknown commodity. Instead, like you said, the 49ers, since they're built on defensive line depth, why don't you develop Javon Kinlaw or guys like that on the side while also prioritizing winning through the signing or through the re-signing of DJ Jones? Like this last offseason, the 49ers signed Arden Key. And guess what? Arden Key never played in more than 50% of the defensive snaps this season. He played, I think, max in 48% of the defensive snaps. So when you look at it, guys like Javon Kinlaw definitely have the opportunity because Arden Key lined up on the interior. So guys like Javon Kinlaw definitely will have the opportunity next season to make an impact should they prove to become healthy and effective pass rushers or run stoppers. But I don't think that you lose on the most important part of your entire team, the defensive line. I don't think that you give up such like a premium talent, especially if it's not coming at a premium cost.
That's, I think, what's going to be interesting because are you assuming that it's not going to be a premium contract? Because I think DJ Jones is expecting big money, right?
I mean, he is expecting big money, but also given that he's a nose tackle and also given that he's a 2-down player primarily, I don't think that it's going to be like, I mean, when you look at defensive tackle contracts, right, you see guys like Chris Jones, you see all these like big deals. And when I mean big deals, I mean in the excess of like $14 million. And I don't think that DJ Jones commands $14 million. I do think that he might command a good 8 to 12 million, somewhere in that range. I'm not exactly sure the numbers. I haven't broken down DJ Jones yet, but I do think that he commands somewhat of a hefty price. But I don't think he commands top tier defensive tackle money, which is going to be good for the 49ers, given that he is a top tier run stopper at the interior defensive line position.
Yeah, because that's what because one of the strengths, like one of the weaknesses I talked about was the 49ers' ability to draft offensive linemen. One of their strengths is their ability to develop defensive linemen, though. You know, with Chris Kosrick as that coach, I think he's the best defensive line coach in the league. And he's just able to do a lot with talent that other people have given up on. And I wonder because look, Armstead is already getting paid. Bosa is about to get paid. How many people can you pay on that defensive line, especially when you've been able to get so much production out of guys like Ebicom, Jordan Willis with this, short time with the team in the last 2 years has performed pretty well. Amenahu was brought in and, he performed really well in the playoffs. And then they have guys like Arden Key, Kinlaw, who knows if he's ever going to be healthy enough to make an impact on the team. But I wonder if there's a price that they will go up to, and then if it's above that point, they're going to let DJ Jones walk, because I think there's other positions that they might have to overpay just because they can't get the right type of talent through the draft, or they're not confident they could develop that. Defensive line, though, I think unless you're a player like Bosa and Armstead that is just out of this world with your production, you can't overpay, because you can get so much more production out of lower end talent. Lower end meaning as far as investment, lower draft pick, or just undrafted, or you could get them for cheap off of free agent market. You can get relatively similar production. So that's going to be an interesting one. I don't know if I would put him in the must sign, just because I think with Lakin, whatever he charges, you got to pay him. But with DJ Jones, if he's in that same thing where he's like, I got to get this much, if it doesn't make sense for the cap, as far as with all of these extensions they have to do, plus so many other positions that they have to fill depth wise, I think you could let him walk if he's too expensive.
Definitely a fair argument, because the point that you bring up, the 49ers do have depth, and when you do have depth, even though it's a premium position in their in how they scheme their defense, when you do have such depth like the 49ers do, like you can sometimes afford to let players go, because guys like Arden Key, if they're going to command a higher salary, obviously they're probably going to be let go this offseason, just because they might be out of the 49ers price range. So yeah, the 49ers have shown a pattern for consistently developing talent. And then if they go elsewhere, they don't always produce. Like Kerry Hyder Jr. last year had 7.5 sacks in the Robert Saleh scheme once Nick Bosa and Solomon Thomas went down. But this year, I think he only had 2.5 sacks as a bigger contributor in that Seattle defense. So when you look at it, there definitely is room to let players go, and it's going to be interesting, because do the 49ers continue to divert money to probably their most expensive position on defensive line? Because you're right, Armstead has gotten paid. Nick Bosa is going to command a quarterback type of value at the defensive end position, and then you've got other guys like Javon Kinlaw, who are also making like $4.2 million a season because he was a first-round draft pick. So you definitely have a lot of money divested into that defensive line, or invested into the defensive line.
D Ford,
yeah,
you're still paying him too.
Right.
You're not getting any production out of him. So that's where I'm saying I don't know if DJ Jones is a must sign, just because that's one of their most, like you said, most expensive position groups. And if he commands big money, like I think he will, I think he'll command, like, even though you say he's not like the higher end nose tackle, I still think he could command that just because of the market and what he's been able to do, showcase in the 49ers defense. I just think he's going to be somebody that'll be too expensive.